Greetings, all, and welcome back. Oh, it has been a time. Oh, no, excuse me. We're having some recordings going on here. So, today we're going to be talking about self love. Now, with our midweek message, just to recap, these videos are geared towards helping individuals get in tune with themselves, get in tune with the environment, and do different things in order to further excel and propel their greatness, right? And so we talked about transforming through trauma. We talked about burnout. We talked about relationships. We talked about self care. Now we're going to talk about self love. Self love. Now, for some, maybe you've heard you can't love anybody else before you love yourself. Maybe for some, you've heard or you're not familiar with what self love is. And maybe it goes only to the point of saying, I love myself, yeah. But maybe as I'm saying this, you're wondering, well, what does that mean? And today I would like us to scratch the surface and begin to dig so that we can plant those seeds and get in tune with what it means to love ourselves. So feel free to grab a pen and paper, grab your journal, take some notes, whatever feels great for you. Okay. So self-love, first off, self-love is a lifelong journey. And that's actually the main point of this week's series, or this series in general. Self-love is lifelong. So how we loved ourselves or how we showed love to ourselves before is different maybe than how we do now. And it's going to look different in the future. Right now, does that mean that the concept of self-love changes? Maybe, maybe not. It just may look different. So before I get ahead of myself, what is self-love? Well, self-love is the process and the act of providing yourself with acceptance, providing yourself with compassion, providing yourself with understanding, providing yourself with acknowledgement or recognition. So, in the process or the act of accepting self, of honoring self, of recognizing who you are, you begin to cultivate the feeling and the existence and the persistence of love within self. So, with self love, there's different elements, right? I mentioned compassion, I mentioned acceptance. With those elements, it can be layered, right? And just because you may not have one element of self love doesn't mean that it's completely gone. Maybe it just means that more attention needs to be paid to that particular area of self love. Okay. And it's an act because it's a collaborative process. It's not just something that is a feeling that goes away, right? You can feel love, absolutely. You can feel like maybe on a given day, you love yourself so much, right? And then what about the days where you don't feel that emotionally, when you don't feel that loving energy towards self? Does that mean, again, that you don't have self love or that you can't get it? No. Maybe that just means that more needs to be done in order to cultivate that energy. So, self love is a process and an act. It's dynamic, it's ever changing. And as we continue to evolve and change as people, how that process looks may change. So this goes into what I was speaking about before, about maybe how you showed up and how you provided yourself with love when you were in your youth, or when you were under the care of a parent or a guardian. Maybe it was different then than now, as let's say an adult. Let's say maybe now that you're a parent, that self love, that process and act of self love looks different. Maybe you're in a relationship with somebody that will look different from when you were by yourself, single, not in relationships. So it's important to know that, again, like with many things that we've talked about, it's ever changing, it's constant, it's dynamic. And this is where that compassion comes into play. The self compassion is giving yourself the freedom to make mistakes, to try again, and forgiving yourself for not doing what may have been the best option at that time. And there could be many reasons why you did not choose to do that thing that would have turned out to be the best option. Maybe you didn't know, maybe you weren't in the headspace to perform in that way. Whatever the reason is, you have understanding for yourself and you offer yourself the freedom to do something differently the next time. Right? So that's the key with compassion. You give yourself that reassurance that says, okay, it's okay. Maybe you didn't get it this time, but let's just say there's another time. And then that goes into the acceptance piece as well. It's accepting that what happened, maybe I didn't like it. Maybe I didn't want it to happen like that. And that's okay. You can accept that what you planned to happen, how you plan to feel during that moment, is not what came about. And accepting your responsibility, accepting your part, accepting yourself in that situation is further strengthened by the compassion that you can give yourself. The recognition. The recognition comes into play, the acknowledgement comes into play when you can identify yourself as a unique being who may require or want things that are different from what others may expect or from what others may say you are supposed to have or get. You recognize that regardless of what somebody else may say, this is what's best for me. And so, again, right, being compassionate so that you can accept what has happened, so that you can then use the acceptance to make a decision. And in that decision, you recognize that you have the power to do things in a different way. And in recognizing that power, you then empower yourself. You then empower yourself to do something differently that will give you or make you get closer to the outcome that you wanted. And there's that self honor, that complete and utter respect that you hold for yourself. The respect and the honor may be what drives you to take that next step to do something differently. Because you have recognized that I want more. I want to be better. I want to do better. Maybe you do things that are in alignment with that. And you respect yourself enough to see it through. You honor yourself enough to see it through. You honor your abilities enough to know that you can do whatever it is that you set your mind to. And in you doing that, you can still choose compassion, acceptance, and knowing that it may not work out as you plan. And you respect yourself enough to keep going. You honor yourself enough to keep going. You honor, again, those inward capabilities that allow you to do something differently this time. Maybe in doing something differently, you discover a new capability that you have, a new ability. Maybe you discover a new side to you that you would not have known had you not taken the time to honor and respect your process. And so, with those elements, right, we work our way to self love. We act through change, we act through compassion and acceptance, we act through recognition, acknowledgement, and we act through respect. And in those actions, right, in those actions that are within themselves a process, we then get closer and closer to self love. So, this is a journey, like I said, that is lifelong. And next week we'll talk about how do I know that I'm giving myself self-love or that I'm loving myself in the way that is best for me? Because as I said, maybe you've said multiple times, "Oh yeah, I love myself." And then as I'm speaking, you're like, "Well, how do I know?" That's what we'll get into. How do you know that you love yourself? How can you test those love measures? I mean, we test people in relationships all the time. We give them something to do and we evaluate how it's done, if it's done in the way that we would do it, whatever. So, how can we evaluate ourselves and say, oh, I'm loving myself just enough? Or I'm loving myself and it's still not enough? Or how do we know that you're loving yourself so much that you are full of love and it's just overflowing? So that's what we'll get into next week. Thank you all so much for being here with me today. Thank you for choosing yourself. And thank you for always committing to your process. Until next time.